All right. So now I have tried to go out of my way to check out a number of different streams of information on what's happening in Ukraine, and I wasn't able to put what Salty Cracker was putting out of my mind. And so as I was listening to Laserpig, he was actually pointing out, he's like, okay, from formerly being in the military, what is Putin doing wrong? But then by the end of it, he gets into this. He's like, now I don't understand why Putin's doing this. Because we know enough about the training of the Russian armed forces. We know enough about the Russian armed forces that even if you aren't into the Russian armed forces kind of gun porn that you'll see, and you'll see it all over YouTube, that Russia is going to have like this Voltron drone, it's like 4 drones that assemble, these trucks drive up, and then the trucks transform into cannons and helicopters and all kinds of stuff. And really, there's a lot of this. There's channels that's all they do and so it took me a while to figure out. It really did a long time to figure out, okay, this is going after veterans. This is going after people, and then people that want to think that they're experts on Russia. So, and of course, like, I could never think, like, I'm watching this silly thing on YouTube thinking it looks a little silly, but somewhere there's somebody paid money to think that this is not silly. So I had to really kind of consider that. So here's where it seems like we're at, really. Because Laserpig was pointing out there's no reason for this getting bogged down on the same roads over and over again. There's no reason for the amount of losses, especially just equipment losses, like raw equipment losses. That there's things that he was bringing up. He's like, this shouldn't even be happening. Like them losing vehicles like this easily. So then what Jeremy's saying of, this is not Russia taking over like we took over Iraq, which I think is very, very important also, is that to me, I'm sitting back like, yeah, this doesn't look like when we took over Iraq, that this isn't looking anything like that. And that Russia had more than enough ability to make it like that. I'm also not buying that there's some large number of civilian casualties. I'm having a really hard time now buying this. And the other thing about it is, everybody who's Globo Chomo, literally Globo Chomo up to the ears, they wear Globo Chomo pants, they dance on the Globo Chomo show. All of them are all about saying how horrible the Russians are and how the Ukrainians are so boldly fighting back, this, that, and the other. And I'm having a really hard time buying it. More and more I'm having a hard time buying it, especially once Laserpig said, yeah, this is the weird part. All of these forces are now bogged down in these places. And and so he got into the National Guard or militia. So now we're getting into this thing of, all we know is that there's semi-regular and irregular forces, and the Russians seem to be, quote-unquote, bogged down in the areas that and fighting them. Putin's said there needs to be a corridor for people to get out. This is another one. Don't remember this when we took over Iraq. I don't recall that. I don't recall any us negotiating anything like that with them. So this is why more and more I'm like, and so here is where, what this reminds me of. This reminds me of Nasser. There's yes, for the older people in the audience, that's who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Nasser in Egypt. Remember the famous thing where Nasser was hearing all this great stuff about Egypt conquering Israel. Then he's like, that can't be possible. I drive tanks. They couldn't have advanced this far. He turns on Israeli radio, which was banned, finds out that Egypt was getting routed. RT is banned. Sputnik is banned. Everything Russian is banned. Are we sure? Now, at this point, we've cut out the tongues of anybody who could say that we were losing. We immediately cut out the tongues of anybody who could say, no, we're crushing the Ukrainians, like, what are you talking about, and that this is, the Russians they're all just skinny 18-year-old boys that haven't been fed and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, none of this is making sense now. None of this is making sense. We know also that mercenary forces had been going into Ukraine for years. This isn't months, this is now years. I still have to see about Azov Media, if the Azov Media channel is still going. I haven't checked that in a few days to see if the Ukrainians are advertising their military exploits, and their irregular forces are advertising, trying to get more mercenaries. So that's why now I'm just at the full stage of no. Especially once you saw Azov Media and the way they were shooting stuff, that they're using like drone cameras. They're look at their trench warfare, and they're doing all this stuff, and which I'm sitting back thinking, no, there are a bunch of people who have definitely been trained to try to hold out against some kind of, they've been trained to hold out, at least that. But this idea that they're just beating back the Russians like crazy, I'm having a very hard time now buying it. Where if everything that I'm seeing in the media says that that's what's happening, and that there's no deviation from that story, that's the other part of it that I'm like, okay, nobody is saying anything other than Ukrainians doing great, Russians doing bad. So now I just can't buy it. I'm like, no, come on now. They're just waiting for the Russians to tap out. Or like what? You're seeing the injured. Remember what it was like with Iraq, with Syria, with all these, where you were seeing hella injuries. So you were seeing streams and streams and streams of people. You were seeing stuff. The Ukrainians still have power. So this is the other thing. Ukrainians still have power, and they could show us cell phone footage, and they're showing us fights against the Russians. So this is not like Iraq. This is not like anything we've seen where it's this overwhelming belligerent power taking everything out. Even Laser Pig was saying, he's like, wait a second. So how are the Russians fucking up not striking water and electricity? And which then, of course, Jeremy would say, that's the point. You think that they don't know you're supposed to strike water and electricity? Had they not seen America invade places? So something's not adding up. Something's not adding up at all about this. And the news is generally untrustworthy. Democrats can't be trusted with shooting you in the back. So It's just something. Hey, what's going on?